All right, checking in at number 7 on our list is the reigning defending John Cornish Award winner, which is given out to the best Canadian college football player every year, trying to become a 2-time winner of this award, Dalton, which only John Mechie and Nathan Rourke have done before. I'm, of course, talking about Elic Ayomanor from Stanford. So besides being the best Canadian in college football right now, Dalton, what makes him so special?
His ceiling, the potential at 6'2" and 210, and just the size and speed and everything he can bring. You watch him, and especially at his peak, like in the second half against Colorado, he had 159 yards against Jabbar Muhammad and Washington's secondary. His ceiling is as high as any receiver on this list, and this is in the first year after he tore his ACL in the preseason of 2022 and didn't play in 2022. Over 1,000 yards on a 3-9 Stanford team that was the lowest graded team in the Power Five, right? Still managed over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, 75.9 receiving grade. He's the only player on Stanford's offense last year who had over a 70 grade. So his situation with Ashton Daniels and a couple other guys throwing him the ball was definitely not ideal, and his talent still just jumped off the page in certain games. The Colorado game, it was 13 catches, 294 yards and 3 touchdowns in the second half alone.
Yes.
When they were rolling, Travis Hunter and all the secondary guys they have back there, Shiloh Sanders on the back end, and he just carried Stanford to a 29-point school record comeback, I believe, against Colorado in the second half. His ceiling is what makes him so enticing, and whether it's at Stanford, this guy would be the number 1 receiver anywhere, just about. I mean, he's got size, he's got speed, he's got good hands, he can make plays. I mean, you saw the one catch over Travis Hunter where he caught it up against his helmet.
Yep.
He can just straight up do things that not many other receivers. Now, again, the 75.9 receiving grade doesn't jump off the table, but part of that comes with just a lack of volume and Stanford as a team being able to execute. He's as talented as any receiver in the country, and he's just coming into his own. That was his first year off of a torn ACL. You could easily see 12, 13, 1,400 yards this year, out of Ayomanor.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, he had the 108th best passing grade in the country throwing to him, basically. At 58.1 grade. Stanford was 108th in the country in that respect. So he's a freak, man. He's a big receiver at 6'2", 210. Mentioned before, Torrhen's got to put on some weight at 6'2", to 190. Ayomanor's not, man. He is a hoss of a receiver as well at 6'2", 210. Ran over 21 miles per hour this past year as well for the Cardinal. Tested out as a 96th percentile athlete according to our game athleticism score metrics. So he's a freak athlete. He had 14 contested catches this past year, tied for 4th among all Power 5 receivers. I really like him a lot, man. You mentioned before, torn ACL, torn MCL, and torn meniscus in 2022, which robbed him of his entire freshman season. He was fantastic this past year, and you mentioned that before, how that game against Colorado, man, just turn on that game. School record in terms of receiving yards, 294 receiving yards, and all of it came in the second half and overtime, which is absolutely ridiculous. So he had 13 catches and 3 touchdowns. 7 of those catches and 2 of those touchdowns were against Travis Hunter, who might be a top 5 overall pick in the NFL draft. So Elic Ayomanor, man, freak athlete. I really love his game a lot. He can really go up and get it as well. He is absolutely deserves to be on this list. And honestly, if he's in a better situation, might even be higher on this list. Might even be able to produce more. But what are some of the negatives, though, you see, Dawn, with Elic Ayomanor?
He's got the talent, Max, to be as high as like 3rd on this list, honestly. But I think for me, when I watch him, it's just the nuances and the details. You can tell he's a very, very young player, right? Who's only actually played in college for 1 year. Just certain like little things in his route running where things can get rounded off, or coming back to the ball on curl routes and things like that. Like, I just want to see. He looked like a guy last year. There were moments who was trying to just figure it out, right? Run things by the book. And just, even though he's really talented, just kind of do what the coaches tell him, right? Which is good. I mean, you want to be able to just go out there and execute what you're supposed to do, right? I think it's just nuanced stuff and details. And I think just continuing to learn the game and to be hyper competitive at the same time, right? And I can imagine on a team that struggles as much as Stanford did last year, that it's hard to keep focus, right? And hard to keep competing and giving it 110 and all that. And I'm not by any means saying he's a low effort guy. He's not. I'm talking about little tiny little details when it comes to like he's got size and speed, right? Let's go up and fight for the football. Let's really work into like zone windows and things, improvising latent plays, and just that little extra, the nuances and details of the position that make the great receivers great. And he's so young, like you said.
Yeah.
First year off a torn ACL in his freshman year. Really, last year was truly his freshman year when you think about it. Now it's just working on, listening to his coaches, getting the details down, the nuances of like reading defenses and all those little things that veteran receivers do. That's what he has to add, and he could have a huge year because talent-wise, he's as good as any receiver on this list.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think as a route runner, that's a great point by you. So he was in the 32nd percentile in terms of separation rate against single coverage last year, only open on about 50% of his targets against single coverage this past year. So can get a little bit better against single coverage as a separator, one-on-one against them. And also his hands were a little suspect last year as well. He had 6 drops, which is about over an 8% drop rate last year as well, which is in the 35th percentile for wide receivers. So can get a little bit better in terms of his hands. Contested targets, he did catch 14 contested catches, but it was only 14 out of 29, so still sub 50% in terms of contested catch rate, which is in the 61st percentile. So solid there, but I think there's even more room to get better. Now, of course, it's going to be hard for him, playing with such a bad quarterback situation at Stanford, but like I said, man, he is so talented, and he should be relied on a ton as well next year as a junior. And with his size and speed combo, he absolutely could be one of the top receivers in the NFL draft next year. And right now, he is our number 7 receiver in college football.